How do I help my older students develop their composition abilities if they've not been narrating from the beginning? How can I keep up with all the many narrations my children need to tell and write each day? How do I know that they are getting the facts right in their narrations? We're addressing these questions and more as we wrap up our composition series today. Experience the joy and beauty of Charlotte Mason Picture Study lessons with Emily Kaiser's Picture Study portfolios from Simply Charlotte Mason. Everything you need for meaningful art appreciation, ready to go. Visit simplycharlottemason.com. Welcome to A Delectable Education, the podcast that spreads the feast of the Charlotte Mason method. I'm Emily Kaiser, and I'm here with
Liz Cottrell
and Nicole Williams.
So as we close out our series on composition, we want to take some time to answer some common practical questions that often arise. So Nicole, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So one of the first ones is where we can combine our students. And with composition, I mean, obviously, anywhere where the children are sharing the same source material. So we talked in our last series of lessons about how so many of your children, well, so many depends on how many children you have, but such a wide form level range of children are reading Plutarch together. Mm-hmm. So if they're reading the same book, Shakespeare play, history, yeah, then you can tailor their narration, whether it's a written or an oral one, so that each child is working at their own level. So that would be one way to do it. So here's some examples I came up with. After a scene from Midsummer Night's Dream, say, your Form 2 student might give you an oral or written narration, while your Form 3 student might write a short summary of the same piece. After reading Plutarch, which I should just preface that some of these are just better done together as a group, but sometimes we might want to do this kind of thing. You might have, again, your Form 2 student recount a single incident or something. Maybe that's going to be their written narration for the day. And your Form 4 student might create a diary entry from the main character. So just kind of mixing it up there. Working from a current events article, lots of us listen or watch current events together as a family. Your Form 3 student could write a descriptive paragraph in prose, while the Form 5 student maybe could craft an opinion piece for the paper on the same topic.
Or write a ballad.
Yes. So my last one was just if, everybody was on the same nature walk, then maybe everybody could write about like a frozen pond or the first wildflower of the season, but your Form 1 student might say it orally and your Form 2 student might write in verse in the meter of that term's poet, and your Form 6 student might compose 20 lines of blank verse, So everybody can kind of do their own things and at their level is what I'm saying.
From the same source is what
from the same source, right?
Have you ever thought about too, if they're doing a lesson together, two children are studying the same ancient history text, while you're working with younger children, they can read out loud to one another and even narrate to each other. You don't have to hear it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Another one that we've talked about before is maybe they both narrate orally a little bit, and then that student who's learning to write a narration write just a small part at the end for themselves. So there's a few things, but again, it will really depend on the source material.
Yeah. Well, I want to tackle the subject of placement, and I'll ask you guys, because you both have experience bringing older students into Charlotte Mason, whereas mine have done it. I hope all of our listeners can have come to appreciate just how important narration is to the subject of composition. It is far more important than simply learning how to format a 5-paragraph essay, right? If you are bringing an older student into the Charlotte Mason method and they are not fluent narrators, time must be spent working on that first, I think. This might mean you don't ask them to write all the different types of composition appropriate for their form, at least at first, right? You could let them try writing those and refrain from critique until their narrating skills have grown, right? Like we could hold off even on offering our point or two of correction if they're still developing these skills. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
One thing you mentioned in an earlier episode that I did with my older kids when they first started this was when they wrote one, I had them read it to me.
Yes.
And that kind of kept my eyes off the paper and allowed them not to have any embarrassment over spelling or anything like that.
And they might notice more, which I think is if you're
for sure.
Yeah.
if they're older, like 4 and 3 and up, she said that's when we do start offering those things, the correction, because they see a need for it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I was just also going to say in my history, we're very careful to give enough of a story to that they can narrate that without just parroting it back.
Correct.
But attention is the thing that has to be cultivated for this. And there was times where I had to say like just something so short just to get them to lock in, get your brain here right now. And then I could read a bigger piece and they could narrate that piece. But it's really hard to cultivate that attention. And I guess just one last thing is when they're older and you're asking them, this all comes naturally when they're younger and you ask them to do it and they just do it forever. But when they're older and there's kind of a sense of embarrassment, why are you asking me to do this? Having a little explanation.
Why do I have to tell you? You just read it.
Yes. Having a little explanation about why we're doing this or what's going on, what the purpose of this is.
Yeah, what's going on in
very
their
helpful.
own brain, right? That this is how you're learning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have just read it. We know what we think. We don't know what they think.
Mm-hmm. I know what I heard, but I don't know what you heard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What other questions do people often have?
I think when you think about the overall big thing, the most common question I have is, feeling like I just need to get a course to work my kids through from like 10 years old up, because by the time they're in high school, with my lack of skills, they're not going to be able. I think we need to trust this method. If you do the things that she assigns at every level, you are going to be astounded at what your children can write.
And as aforementioned, people who get into college cannot write.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true there too, but we don't want to fall to that level for sure.
For sure.
That's why we're doing a better way of educating. But I cannot emphasize enough that you just don't have the option of skipping narrations, like running out of time, just not doing them, or blowing them off in any way, whether oral or written. And especially starting in 7th grade, relentlessly give them those composition themes and those delayed narration assignments. Don't say, oh, I just couldn't think of a good thing this week, or I've got to take some time and figure this out, so I haven't been doing it for 2 or 3 or 4 terms. Just all you have to do is have them write, so you can make time for that. And because it's the accumulation of the comfort of writing over time that is going to make a difference when they get to high school, I guess. I also get a lot of questions about, how do you hear everybody's narrations?
Yeah.
Right. And I'll just say right off the bat, there's no simple solution to this. Every single year of your school, it's going to change because your children have different skills and you have different children at the table and you have different things going on. When I am working out my yearly timetable, I, on a day-to-day basis, will actually consider if this child, I can't hear 2 narrations at one time. So I schedule lessons so I don't have 2 children having to narrate. And like Emily keeps pointing out, it's only in the younger years, especially 2 or 3 times that they're going to have to be doing it. And once they get to be 10, they're going to be writing them. You don't have to listen to that. They're sitting there writing.
And I have my Form 2 and 3 students do several lessons together, and I never hear their narrations. I mean, I hear them across the room narrating to one another, but I'm not hearing the words that they're saying.
Because the fact is, they could narrate to the wall and it would be just as effective.
It would.
Because it's for them,
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing is to be diligent about planning lessons for tomorrow, because you can look at tomorrow's schedule and decide right then which lessons will be narrated, which ones will be written, oral, whatever, and which children are going to be doing what. You just be surprised. It's not as hard as it might seem. You might feel like, oh, I have 5 students. How can I hear 12 narrations a day? You don't have to, is the point. So
I think another one moms are I mean, we've perennially heard this, I think, for the last 20 years that how do I know they're not making up their narrations, right? If we aren't pre-reading or if we aren't hearing their narrations.
Yeah.
And it is far harder to make up than to tell what you just read, right? But again, that is not the purpose of narration.
Yeah.
Right? The purpose is for them to learn, to dig in, to digest the reading and do their learning.
And if they're all studying in the same room, you can be more aware. If you're taking time to plan lessons for tomorrow, you know where they're at in the books. I mean, sometimes even just skimming headings in a book gives you enough of a clue. If they write about the discovery of some mineral in Alaska and they were actually studying about something in Mexico, that was all made up.
Yeah. But I think that we just had a mom recently who was brand new to having a consult with intellectual education. And she was, I think, just taken aback. Like, wait, what do you mean you guys all do school in the same room? And I think it's much easier for a child to go off and not do their work. And then they have to make up a narration.
You're really putting them in a moral dilemma too.
Yeah. And I'm actually thinking back to my 12-year-old self and probably would have done the same thing. I want to read what I wanted to read.
Right.
Yep.
I had a thought too that I wanted to bring up. So lots of times we talk about narration and just the act of knowing, but this has really brought, I hope, shed a lot of light on this other aspect and why it's important. And if we think about the other forms that people try to use for narration, like to draw a narration, now, there are times where in their drawing lessons, they're asked to draw a scene from their literature illustration or something like that. Yeah. But if we finish a lesson and we draw it on the regular, we are missing this whole aspect.
Right, because narration is a verbal activity.
And so I think there is a rule of thumb that Charlotte Mason talks about that. Like, if the material is unable to be communicated clearly in words and it needs a diagram or a map, that's their narration, is the diagram or the map.
Right.
But the lessons that we have been talking about that feed composition are all lessons that they're taking in literary form. They're reading books, and she was absolutely persistently adamant that literary form deserves a literary narration. Yeah. So if it comes into us through words, it comes out of us through words.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And one other thought I just didn't get a chance to say when it comes to balancing who's narrating and all of that. First of all, try to read their written narrations the same day they were written. It doesn't take that long, and that way you're keeping up with it. Don't think, I'll save all this till Friday afternoon, because Friday afternoon you're going to want to leave the house, and also I know it is not ideal, but it is possible to hear a child's brief oral narration while the child you're working with is doing their transcription writing or working out a long math problem. I mean, you're not constantly involved with the 7-year-old every single second.
And you're also always telling people they need to train the child who needs to narrate to not just come and burst out. They need to put their hand on your shoulder like they've been doing,
right.
Social situations.
Interrupt correctly, or just give them a signal. I know you need to narrate. I'll be with you in 10 seconds. And you get the little one doing something for a moment and you turn to the other child. This is part of learning to love their neighbor as themselves, right? They are cooperating.
To write a narration, they're probably old enough to make lunch. So maybe you sit with your cup of tea after school while somebody else makes lunch and you read narrations.
Yeah, there's lovely thought.
Yes.
And I think just as well as keeping with the writing assignments and not letting them off the hook or blowing them off just because you are uncertain or feel insecure or something. Do not underestimate how much wide reading helps your children to write. Help your children get beyond only fantasy books or only survival books. Help them to take their novels seriously that are assigned every term. From 4th grade on, they have to be able to read widely to ever be able to write well. That would be my major point about this entire session on compositions.
Well, I have always at these closing episodes talked about assessing their progress. So this really kind of goes along with the point or two of correction, definite. But even that's not till the end. So we definitely want to be assuring ourselves, our child, that they're making progress in their composition skills, even before they get to the point where we're actually intervening, right? And bringing some things to their attention. So I think this is the most daunting area for us as
probably.
teachers, right? Especially since the majority of us didn't grow up practicing narration. It's just a foreign concept, right? So the first thing to remember is that we gauge progress not against the ideal, like the most perfect composition, writing, or whatever.
Yes.
We're comparing the child to themselves, right? Are you making progress compared to where you were last week, last month, last term, last year, whatever the case may be? So that means we do need to look back at their old narrations. In the early years, when this is all oral, we still have their exams that are written down. So we have like a term by term look at what they have been writing. Our exam planner has some helpful criteria to look at and questions to help you assess their work in the front matter of that exam planner. Also, I mentioned previously, John O'Kaiser did a teacher training video for us, and that is available, called A Point or Two of Correction. That has a lot of things that you can look at to help assess how they're coming along. But some simple questions you could ask yourself are, is their narration or their composition relevant to the topic or the reading? Is it on topic? Does it show their engagement with the material and ideas? Are they showing interest in the things that they're reading about? Have they improved their fluency of communicating? Do you know what they're talking about? Can you understand their meaning? And have they shown growth over the term or from year to year? That's it. And I think we can rest assured that if the answer is yes, even if it's a tiny amount of progress, if they're making some strides in these areas, that they're going to be okay and it will take care of itself.
And just maybe keep a folder and keep samples. Maybe once a month, set something aside and save it. And you go back and look over those over a year or two, and you will see the progress.
We'll be right back.
Equipping rising learners, inspiring thinkers, Climbing Higher Math offers live, asynchronous, and self-paced math courses taught in the spirit of Charlotte Mason. At Climbing Higher Math, we guide students in Form 3 and up as they gain confident footing in algebra, geometry, and trigonometry with support at every step. We offer 3 flexible formats: live, interactive classes with discussion-based lessons and limited class sizes; asynchronous courses offering flexible scheduling and consistent teacher support; and self-paced options for students who prefer flexible pacing while still receiving guidance. Each course is rooted in Charlotte Mason's methods and built around Captain ideas, bringing upper-level math to life through connection, curiosity, and thoughtful exploration. Enrollment for fall 2026 opens in March. Visit climbinghighermath.com to learn more and choose the format that fits your student's journey.
Charlotte Mason said, "The response of the young students to such a scheme of study is very delightful. What they write has literary and sometimes poetic value, and the fact that they can write well is the least of the gains acquired. They can read, appreciating every turn of their author's thought, and they can bring cultivated minds to bear on the problems of the hour and the guiding of the state. That is to say, their education bears at every point on these issues and interests of everyday life, and they show good progress in the art of becoming the magnanimous citizens of the future." Well, that is a lofty goal, and that is it for our series on composition. Resources that we mentioned today are going to be found in the show notes. And from here, we're moving into more language arts by looking at languages, both foreign and our native tongue, as we continue to spread the feast of the Charlotte Mason method while discussing a Charlotte Mason curriculum.
If you benefited from this conversation, please like and subscribe. We hope our discussion serves to equip and encourage you as we seek to explain the Charlotte Mason method. You can find the show notes in the video description or by visiting adelectableeducation.com/episodes. There, you'll find the links and quotes we mentioned in today's episode. We are so grateful for our loyal Patreon supporters who help make this show possible. If you'd like to partner with us in our work here at A Delectable Education, you can join our Patreon community and receive exclusive and early content as our thank you for your monthly support. Find out more at patreon.com/adelectableeducation. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.